to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Seraki. How you doing? How's everything going? Today, I really wanted to address the psychosis of poverty and just having a poverty mentality system, because it doesn't matter whether you're rich, middle income, or poor. The fact that we have this poverty reality for the majority of our people means that that's the matrix we exist in, and it is a psychosis. I did do a video recently about the engineered poverty of Africa, beloveds. It doesn't even make sense that the country that provides all the gold, all the diamonds, all the rubies, all the everything, coltan, name it, nickel, to the world, happens to have some of the poorest nations, in the world, and the poorest people in the world. It just doesn't make sense. And you see, it's all been mixed up with this thing of we're sinners. That's what the religion, the missionary came and told us, just as a form of mind control, so that you're always beating yourself up. And then poverty now, beloveds, it's engineered. But the way that it affects people's lives is absolutely a psychosis, and it's a mental prison, worse than any other, beloveds. Because it makes people feel like they're less. It makes people feel like they're failures, or their parents were failures, or their grandparents were failures, when they don't realize the system was manipulated to create that. And you'll always see the story of the person who believed in themselves and, grew up with no shoes, but was able to get out and make a lot of money, because it's all about the mind and the reconditioning of the mind. And, even the rich are poor too, beloveds. They may have the material wealth, but they lack something else. Sometimes the emotional wealth, or even the spiritual wealth, or the sacrifices. You see, rich people won't tell you that. And then the people in power won't tell you the kind of sacrifices they have to make to really be at the top of the ladder in their various African nations, which are still colonies of the Babylon system. So you're in a lose-lose situation. Okay, you have nice things, but the sacrifices you have to make for those nice things is just, it's too high of a price to pay. But poverty is a psychosis because it affects how we as Black people, we as African people feel about ourselves. It affects our dreaming capabilities. And it locks us out from so much. We lock ourselves out from so much. And then the system doubles up on that. Because poverty keeps you where you can't even script your life, because you're relying on, how am I going to feed myself today? Where am I going to sleep today? How am I going to, meet my basic needs? And so that just keeps your mind at the most animalistic low level. And it's done on purpose. Because if your needs were taken care of, you'd be thinking differently. And it's a real psychosis, beloveds. Because it's a rubber stamp that's been put on even the Black nation as a whole. So anyone who, happens to be wealthy in the Black nation, the majority of them will become Mzungus. Because we've been taught the Mzungu is rich and the Black man is poor. And it's like the total opposite. And because we have this Babylon system, we've never been free, beloveds. We're in this deep mental slavery. So even our leaders, they don't even know what they're ruling and reigning. And a lot of people say, by the end of 2019, the majority of the top 10 emerging markets, like the biggest, the countries that were accelerating in their growth, were on the African continent. And then all of a sudden, everything was shut down. So part of the pandemic, beloveds, was to block our people. We're trying to play fair and like compete in a rigged system, a system where you never win. And so now those top 10 that were from Africa, they've all fallen off the list because they had to lock down and borrow money from the West to do this and do that, and leaders were taken out. But we were thriving. If the system was fair, we'd be so far. We would be the superpower. Although we are going to be the next superpower. I know it doesn't look like it. I know when I say it, people will be like, come on now. But we are the next leaders of this world. The leadership has already come to us spiritually. And as you know, if you've been watching this channel long enough, the physical must follow the spiritual. It's one of the fundamental principles. Your body goes where your mind is at. And that's why the psychosis of poverty, of having to grow up even in the environment of poverty, and how that shapes our children's minds and kind of stunts their growth. Not only physically because they can't get the necessary nutrition they need, but even mentally and psychologically, it stunts their growth. Because many of our brothers and sisters right now are living in a hell on earth. And they call that poverty. Their reality is literally a hell on earth that has been created for them. It's painful, beloveds. Because already you put yourself in a limiting prison. Just by having that label of poor, it already divides us. Because there are those who, the rich become almost worse than the Mzungus themselves, who brought this division. You see, before our leadership was spiritual, beloveds, it was all based on spiritual power. But now it's based on this physical, material wealth that doesn't even really exist. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Welcome back to Wake Up Africa, beloveds. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki, where I'm talking about the psychosis of a poverty mentality, the psychosis of poverty, the psychosis that we have been brainwashed and conditioned and engineered to believe that we, either as an individual or a collective Black people, are poor. When we live on the richest riches in the world. It just doesn't even make sense. And, it blocks, that it creates a limited thinking. And when we know that our thoughts create our reality, then that is the most damaging thing that anyone can do, because they're already handicapping you before you even get a chance in the world. And the way our children are conditioned, and there's a lot that talks about, you should really do this. Look into, do you have a poverty mentality? Because there's a lot, beloveds, that's within our power to change our lives. But we've been told that some physical rescue or some physical condition has to be there for us to live our best life or to transform our lives. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. The thing is the right mindset and holding on to that right mindset, and then doing the necessary spiritual work and taking action when prompted by the Spirit, so that you can move out of your situation. But you have to first realize they got you mentally. Poverty is mental first. That's why they even came with a poverty mentality. And there's things, if you want to know if you have a poverty mentality, basically most of your decisions are made out of fear or based on fear. You feel guilty as soon as you buy something. Money comes and money goes. Because you have like almost a negative relationship with it. You're constantly worried about money and thinking about it often and how you can get it, how it's limiting you. You don't have money for this. You don't have money for this. You need money for that. That kind of thing. That's a poverty mentality. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because your thoughts are creating your experience. Having a strong dislike for rich people and wanting to be just like them, And you'll find a lot of people who have either gone through poverty or are currently don't have less than they feel they need. You'll notice that they have a very limited perspective on their options, and they have a very limited, they think very small. And so when you try and explain the bigger concepts of life, they're just not there. And that's why the Maslow hierarchy of needs is no joke, beloveds. Like, if you don't have enough to feed and clothe yourself and your family, and you don't have shelter, it's very hard for you to come out of some of these mental prisons. And that's why it's a psychosis, because it's like you create that world for yourself. You create that poverty reality for yourself. And it makes you feel like you literally put yourself in that prison where you're like, there's no way for me to, get out of this. I would need this. I would need that. There's so many people who contact me and they say, I want to move off grid, but I don't have enough money. I don't, I can't get the money. And it's just like, if I reply to them and tell them it's change your mentality, they almost won't take me seriously. But that's what's been all about this prosperity stuff that the Babylon system has been teaching, and the prosperity gospel. But it's about changing your mindset, beloved. The biggest thing you have to change is your inner, and your outer must follow. Change your mind, beloveds. And, there are different ways to script abundance into your life. There are some really healing therapies, like, but you'll have to use discernment, like online, which can wash that poverty mentality out. Because most people who are in that poverty mentality almost have a negative relationship with money. So even if they were to get money, they'd go back to their poverty. It's like if you look at all these, poor people who have won the lottery, and how a year or 2 years later, they've lost it all. Because their mind wasn't strong enough to handle what came to them physically. And that should show you could want all the money in the world, but if you haven't fixed here, it will come and it will go. So I would highly recommend that you start cleaning out your poverty lack mentality. Do research into it. Look into like abundance. There's some abundance meditations that you can do. I would personally record it in my own voice, but there's some excellent ones online where you can just listen to thoughts, where thoughts and words of abundance will just be repeated. You can listen to it all night. You can do a 1 or 2 hour meditation, and this will literally clean your mind. Some get so emotional, they cry. Others just find that things just start changing, because you see, what's been programmed is not the poverty you feel on this conscious mind, but it's that subconscious, the one that they have been programmed since birth, and that was programmed by the environment, because you pick up everything. You're a brilliant being. You're a superhuman, beloved. So you pick up everything, and that poverty registered so deep, whether it was the media saying it, everything that you were absorbing, that you gave authority to. And so you have to put competing thoughts in that part of your mind that will rebuke the thoughts of poverty, that will stand against the thoughts that you don't have enough. And that's the place where you start, beloveds. It sounds crazy when you don't have anything and you're thinking of where you're going to get your meal the next day. But that's where you start. And you will see your life change. Like, do what you need to do today, but make sure that you're also giving time to change your tomorrow by changing what's in here. Tuko pamoja.